Hello, and welcome to episode 0 of a new campaign diary for Dungeons & Dragons. My old campaign just finished, and I figured now was a good time to start something new, and this is a homebrew campaign, so I figured let's tell the story. Don't worry, I know my camera's a potato, so the image will shrink and you'll have something else to look at, something much prettier, I'm sure. Like this. Woo! As a quick mention, I'm also going to try and use the term species rather than races. I've put a link in the description about it, but if you hear me refer to anything as a species, that is what I mean. I might get it wrong, but I'm going to try and get it right from now on. Just thought it was worth mentioning, basically. Anyway, I'm going to try and keep this on the topic as much as I can, so without any hesitation, this is the introduction to the islands of Sanat and how the campaign is going to start. On the screen you can see the island. The year is 856. The people of Sanat, time is being tracked from when the island first became populated by the humans and other such species who are the core of the D&D book. The reason they do this is not just because of ego, although it certainly helped the matter. Islands became populated by refugees from a war that ravaged a place, inventively titled the Old Kingdom, because everybody in Sanat has now forgotten where they came from. Why? Well, if they could remember, they would know. The war, incidentally, is called the Old War for the exact same reasons, but as you will soon learn, that war is still going on. The first kingdom to exist is known as the Principality of Surathis. The players in the islands themselves, this is seen as a pretty default territory, and will be where the campaign actually begins. Its capital is Auroria and is ruled by King Leonis Fact in a typical male-first hereditary monarchy. Sorry about that. It has an army, the Ordos Land, a navy, the Ordos Water. Yes, there is a theme here, and yes, I like Warhammer. The religion is the Ordos Divine, and the town guards are known as the Ordos Peace. The titles within use some typically Roman-sounding themes like Pontifex and Imperator. What can I say? I'm on a binge of Roman history at the moment, because that's the sort of fun I have. The second kingdom to form was Nerekia to the east. The kingdom has always been poor, taking up land mostly consisting of marsh and rock. Their capital is Ribble, and they're ruled over by Queen Kalinda Lyrae. They have an odd method of choosing rulers in that every 10 years a vote takes place amongst the entire population. The twist is that it's the person who comes second that becomes ruler, while the person who comes first typically becomes an advisor. But that is not expected or in any way mandated by law. Nerekia came to this voting method due to practicality. If someone is popular, then it must be for a reason, and they should stay in that place. A folk hero should remain a hero. Is it flawed? Absolutely, but it's what they chose to do. Their organisations are simple. I don't really see a need for fancy names. The army is the Nerekian army, and that's that. There is a woodsman and miners guild, specific to the kingdom and owned by it, as it's their main source of economy. Nerekians are quite spiritual, their main church being the Joy of Iktar, but they don't mind who you worship. The Diocese of Ariz is next, and is a theocracy. You see the god Ariz as the one above all others, king of the gods in a manner similar to Zeus from ancient Greece. Ruled over by Grand Ecclesiastic Seren Emir, his purpose is to ensure that all of Ariz worships their god of the same name, whether they want to or not. While they do not claim Ariz is the only god, they do state that he is the only one worth worshipping. When the current Grand Ecclesiastic dies, someone within the diocese suddenly finds themselves with a magical crown, often just floating in front of them. This is seen as divine will, and even the other kingdoms struggle to argue against the fact that their god must be doing it. Whoever has this crown appear in front of them is the new leader. Doesn't matter whether they're rich or poor or even pious, and no one knows why. But no one would dare argue against their new ruler. Everything is focused on that same god. All of their organizations have Ariz in the name. They do have Ushavi Ariz, who are the secret police who crack down on people worshipping other gods. They are the cleansers as far as they are concerned, and they also work in other kingdoms. Fourth is the Azinian Protectorate. At first it controlled all of the south of Senat, but eventually that changed. It's ruled by Marshal Supreme Antares Auriga, and the title may give the hint this is a kingdom fully focused on military might. When their leader dies, a vote takes place amongst nobility, and, unsurprisingly, only generals are put in charge. Because that never went wrong in the real world. Their main economy is agriculture, as their lands are vast, flat floodplains, with nobles controlling many pockets of territory in a manner similar to counties in the real world. The leader of each town answers to a local baron who controls a larger area, and those barons form the council that votes for their leader, and they also sign laws into effect. A lot of backroom deals take place to get things done, because again, when has that ever gone wrong? The Azinian Protectorate is so strong it has two separate armies. The Orax Wal is focused on defense, literally means order of walls. We also form the town guards, no civilian oversight here. Orax Attack is shockingly the offensive army. They typically form the border guards at times of peace, but they are trained for offensive operations and are always ready. Orax Ra are the special forces, the SEAL Team 6 of the Azinian Protectorate. The naval order is quite weak. Like the Romans, they don't take the sea seriously. A few hundred years after the Azinian Protectorate formed, the Catian Despotate rose up in rebellion and claimed their own land. The Protectorate were quite happy to give them what is now desert to call home. It was useless to them. The Despotate is ruled by Estella Faye, the Master of the Depths. Becoming the next leader is as simple as challenging the current ruler and surviving the subsequent challenges that come along with it, navigating the desert, controlling a ship by stealing it, and then a fight to the death that can have multiple challenges at once if needs be. Only one ever stands at the end. As you may have guessed, Despotate is a naval civilization, due to its requirement of stealing a ship to become a leader, but they also use slaves. Quite heavily, in fact. The other kingdoms don't necessarily avoid using them, but the Despotate has found a reliance on it. A bit questionable, basically. I have to promise I came up with a naming system before I did the terrain of the kingdom, because the Despotate uses more Arabic-sounding names, and I've grown to like them now. Barin Ishkatia is where the bulk of the slaves find themselves, the army, as cannon fodder. Nice. Naral Ishkatia is the navy, and this is by far the strongest. So strong, in fact, that they claim the defense of every merchant ship in Senat, regardless of their kingdom of origin, and the other kingdoms really can't stop them. It's not unusual to see a Catian ship in another port. As long as they don't leave their ship, they're fine. Lastly, we have the Anordian Empire, formed by elves a couple hundred years ago, as long as some other more peaceful species who wanted out of the conflicts between the other 5 kingdoms. It is predominantly elven, but allows furbolgs, tabaxi and so on to move through its borders with ease. Humans and some others, however, are not let in. Trade is done at the border, and that's it. Currently run by Songse Ena Meliamne. The empire is made of clans that rotate leaders based on who has been out of power the longest, until that clan leader dies. Each clan has its own ideas on what is important, so sometimes the empire is more tolerant of trade, sometimes it starts demanding some extra land. Control of vast forest and jungle territory, and little information gets out about them, except that their military might relies on guerrilla tactics, and they are terrifyingly good at them. As all of these territories took hold, made their claims for the lands, they began to find ruins of old civilization, one that still exists in the western mountain range known as the Numithian Peaks. The Xerixian dynasty is formed of dragons and dragonborn, and is where they will almost exclusively be found. They were the former rulers of the island, but never shared why their power waned, only that it did so not long before the refugees arrived. Some sympathetic humans and other species trade with them and for them. The Dragonkin stick to their own, and their own stories with it. There are two other big empires that are formed around Sanat. The dwarves are below the surface, as always, and they are now embroiled in a civil war. The Durian Commonwealth used to work together for all dwarven kind and traded with the Xeroxian dynasty, and then, when the other species arrived, they traded with them too. Then Ashane arrived and caused his secessionist movement. They're fiercely xenophobic, and it wants nothing to do with the surface and cares only with its own might and a threat from below, the Underdark. The other empire is the Deep, the ocean all around Sanat, ruled by both merfolk and tritons who eternally battle each other for the territory. Some individuals are friendly to merchant ships and will trade with them. Some will attack, and other species have to deal with them. In truth, the Katian decree to defend all merchant ships mainly exists to stop these sea folk. It's good practice. They said that the old war had carried on. Well, all 6 main kingdoms are at war, and basically always have been. It fluctuates. Sometimes ground conflicts, sometimes skirmishes, then trade wars and cultural wars, and so on while they build up strength again. I won't gloss over it too much, but there are some changes I've made to some of the species. Hill dwarves have been changed to sea dwarves, so named because they're almost always found on ships. They are on every merchant ship and aren't afraid to join a kingdom's navy. Their strength works well for them. The Kalashtar were added for one of my players. For those that don't know, they're in the Eberron book. They are human but with a spirit link. In my world, those spirits are trapped in the Shadowfell and seek to escape. Kalashtar only exist in Erekia and serve as their spiritual leaders, except with all other deities with them. Half-elves become a looked down upon race. The enmity between elves and humans means that few accept them. There aren't many, and they aren't hunted down or hated, just avoided. So that's a little bit about the world and how it's going to progress when it starts. However, about the characters. I have 7 players, so that's going to be rather manic. I'm going to try and not spoil anything for the other players in these videos. I want things to be revealed at the same time as they would find out in the campaign. The characters will meet on a ship, the Nisi, sailing from the Diocese of Riz to the Kingdom of Erekia, and stop off in Storochia. But who are these characters? Well, first we have Koda, a Goliath fighter escaping from his clan, the Deliban, after some actions that caused consequences. He's went all the way through the Protectorate and the Despotate, finds himself boarding this ship. Then we have Kyrian, a Hexblade Warforged, a very obvious character, and not just because Warforged are rare. They spent their life as a courier for a mage, boarded the ship to deliver something. Business as usual. Nevada Shaneth is a scaleless dragonborn monk, with a little bit of homebrew thrown in. An escapee, he knows nothing of the world, and seeks to learn what he is and why he was held. He boards the ship to get as far away as he can. Owen, the dwarf rogue, is one of the sea dwarves, a smuggler with a very long, storied past, who finds himself aiding a Kalashtar, Teashara. He's a wizard who is guided by their spirit, Shara, to find a spellbook. Owen was already there and sought to take it for wealth, but sensed it was worth helping Taya instead. They are both returning to her home in Erekia to find out what happens next. Then we have Ven, a wild magic human sorcerer with a recent revelation that changed their sheltered life forever. Escaped alongside Nevada Shaneth, they too seek answers in a place in the world. As a note, Ven, Nevada, and Kyrian all come from the same town, Gronas, within the Diocese of Ariz. And lastly, we have Zorin, a tiefling fighter. Born blind, they ended up under the care of their uncle within the Azinian Protectorate, and soon became a bodyguard for merchants and rich people, who boarded the same ship as the others to get hold of an item before going on to meet up with an old friend. And that's it for the preamble. Sorry it took so long, and hopefully it's not too painful, but this is my first video ever. Anyway, see you later.